Hi, everybody. First and foremost, I just wanted to take a minute and thank everybody for coming to tonight's meeting and taking time out of your busy lives to come and listen to what I have to say tonight. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Jacqueline Merchant, and tonight I'm going to be discussing childhood homelessness and mental health. First off, before we get started, just wanted to touch upon what is childhood homelessness. As we all know or could imagine, there's many ways that we can define homelessness. There's two main definitions that we're going to focus on throughout this presentation. First one is literal homelessness, and the second one is doubled up homelessness. So what is that? Literal homelessness can be defined as the primary caregiver describing their place of residence as being in a homeless shelter, a hotel, on the streets, in an abandoned building, or living in a car. And then doubled up is when the primary caregiver is reporting that they are living with a family member or friends without any cost of rent. So they're pretty much living with another family for free because they have no other options. Okay, so a few main ideas to understand before we dive into this information. A primary stressor, so our main focus of where our stress is coming from for these students that we'll be discussing, is homelessness. Most of this information goes back to homelessness and how it's affecting these kids, and I want you to just remember that most of this is regarding homelessness. A secondary stressor is mental health diagnosis. So from this primary stressor of homelessness, we're going to see how this can impact the student's mental health. And then other stressors we'll be discussing is adverse childhood experiences, which we will touch upon that a little deeper in the next few slides. So as far as homelessness goes, there is a variety of mental health concerns that can stem from homelessness. Some of these concerns are substance abuse, anxiety, depression, externalizing behaviors, and internalizing behaviors. So just to run through those real quick. Unfortunately, students that are homeless, have experienced homelessness in the past, are more likely to fall into substance abuse. Whether that's drugs or alcohol, their chances of that happening are higher than they would be if they never experienced homelessness. In addition to this, students are more likely to experience anxiety and depression, and then also either externalize or internalize their behaviors. So for the most part, those who are externalizing their behaviors are not internalizing them. It's usually one or the other. It could be both, but typically it's just one or the other. So what I mean by externalizing is they're acting out, they're delinquent, they're not listening to their teachers, they don't want to listen. And then internalizing is the opposite as that sounds. These students are keeping everything inside. They're not discussing how they're feeling. They're just letting everything bottle up, which, as we all know, I'm sure from experience, bottling up your emotions is not a good idea. We can only, as a human, we can only take so much before we kind of meet our limits. So just imagine like how this feels for these young kids that are experiencing this on a daily basis. How much are they internalizing and not discussing? And who knows what's going to happen when they can't take anymore. All right, so a little research. Let's see. 14% more of preschoolers experience mental health issues. So what I mean by this is homeless children that were compared to their classmates that were not homeless, 14% more of them were prone to mental health issues, which is, I would say, a significant amount for students at our ages, like 3 and 4. 14% is a lot. Like, you have these students that are so young having their mental health compromised. It's not a good situation. And then in addition to this, almost 25% of students ages 6 to 11 are more likely or already have experienced mental health issues. So compared to their counterparts who are not homeless, they're 24% more likely to experience some sort of mental health diagnosis, which again, that's a quarter of your population that is being diagnosed with some sort of mental health issue. In addition to these statistics, real quick, I just wanted to run through what I have down here. Just take a minute to explain what this kind of timeline that I have created represents. So, adverse childhood experiences, which for those of you that aren't familiar, this is your ACEs score. So pretty much an individual over the age of 18 is given a series of questions, 10 questions, and they're very straightforward. They ask, have you ever experienced this in your childhood? If it's a yes, you get 1 point. If it's a no, you don't get any points. Most points you can get is a 10. The higher the score is, the worse of a score it is, because you don't want somebody going through all of these experiences, because they're not good solutions or good situations to be in. So we have adverse childhood experiences, which can more likely lead to Axis 1 and Axis 2 disorders, which I'll discuss what those are on the next slide. And then this in turn leads to homelessness. So this sense of homelessness I was referring to as like adult homelessness. So you have these individuals that experience childhood homelessness, they're diagnosed with these disorders, and then they are more prone to being homeless in their adult life as well, which is not a good situation. So, real quick, this is a copy of the adverse childhood experiences. I will just pull it up real quick. Again, like I mentioned, a list of 10 questions, yes or no answers. Some questions range from, did a parent or other adult in the household often or very often push, grab, slap, or throw something at you, or ever hit you so hard that you had marks or were injured? If it's a yes, you would circle yes, so you get 1 point. At the end, you total up, and that's your ACEs score. Again, like I mentioned, you don't want a high score on this. If you score a 10 out of 10, your childhood was pretty rough. You went through a lot of adverse experiences, and it's very unfortunate. That can really affect people's mental health, and it's a lot to overcome as you grow up, and a lot of people suffer because of these experiences. So that's the ACEs exam, and then over here I have Axis 1 disorders, Axis 2 disorders, which I had previously mentioned how these experiences can lead to these diagnoses. So Axis 1 disorders are typically social anxiety, panic disorder, PTSD, and then Axis 2 disorders are your personality disorders such as schizophrenia, borderline personality, anything like that. Okay, so the big question, what can we do to help this situation? We previously saw how students as young as preschool are being affected by homelessness, it's very upsetting knowing that these 3 and 4-year-olds, first of all, are homeless to begin with. It's heartbreaking. And then you see how they're facing mental health issues because of these situations that they're in. So Knowing that this starts at such a young age, we need to understand that early intervention for this is crucial. This is so important to help out these students, to help them, just like to intervene and just provide support where we are capable of providing support in the school system. Some of these I had thought of were the backpack program, free or reduced lunches, free or reduced price after school programs, or intramural sports programs. So real quick on each one of these. Backpack program, pretty much this image represents what that is. We're packing up these backpacks with non-perishable food items and giving them to the students to take home for the weekend, so they're not concerned about what happens when I go home and I don't have any food to eat. We're giving them that food so they have something to eat. They know that they're going to be okay. Free or reduced lunches, depending on the poverty level, students can qualify for free or reduced lunches, which is wonderful. It gives them another chance to eat, as they all should be eating. And then after school programs, and then intramural sports programs, which I'll discuss in a little bit more in the next few slides. So with all of this, everyone wants to know, what is the cost? It's a big question for every sort of situation in life. So the National School Lunch Program, NSLP, sponsored by Feeding America. It's federal company that is affiliated with the USDA Food and Nutrition Service. And then these sorts of programs are providing schools and giving them the resources they need to implement these ideas, such as a backpack program and reduced lunches. And also, on top of federal programs, there are state agencies that schools can contract with, where they can receive grants and stuff like that to provide additional resources for these students. So this was pretty awesome. Schools receive cash reimbursement for reduced lunches served and for backpack food. So anything the school is putting out to give these students, they're receiving a reimbursement from either state or federal agencies, which is amazing. So essentially, it's not costing the school district anything. So we can help these kids pretty much for free and make a difference in their lives. And then as far as the intramural program and the after-school program, schools, depending on the poverty level that is present in the school, schools can qualify for grants for childcare. It just depends on how many families are at the poverty level that are poor. And then also a lot of programs offer sliding scale based programs, so that's just the families are paying based off of what their monthly income is. So this can be helpful for families that don't have a lot of money that need childcare. They'll take into consideration what that family's household income is and base off their monthly payment off of that. And then lastly, the intramural program. This is essentially going to be free. In my thoughts, I was thinking we ask a teacher volunteer to stay after school for a half hour, 45 minutes, supervise the kids while they're in the gym, and just let the kids play. Like, they can play baseball, basketball, anything they want. Like, just let them have that extra bit of fun where they can have control of what they're doing and they don't have to worry about what's going on outside of their school life. Final thoughts. Together as a district, we can intervene to help these students. Like the famous saying goes, it takes a village. We all need to come together and work on this, and together we can all make the change. Thank you.